the team is kind was softened. Somebody who was extremely skilled in describing the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Obviously, in particular, as we thereby asks about the beautiful description, the hilya of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, those beautiful and majestic features of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I desired for him to describe some of his features to me so I could cherish and hold on to them. And so it's something that he desires. The description of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi because he wants now a greater and more profound connection to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Language of ta'alluq also is from the synonyms of love. He wants to increase in knowledge of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the beautiful and majestic and perfection of features, so we can the Prophet ﷺ, so that they realize the greatness and the magnificence of the Rasul ﷺ. And likewise, it's also the Rasul ﷺ, wala fakhar, and without any boasting, realizes in and of himself ﷺ. And the Prophet knows he's great, sallallahu Rasul ﷺ, of his own greatness and perfection and magnificence. Put that inside the bab of humility of the Prophet ﷺ, if you so please. But likewise, also others gazing upon the Rasul, regardless did wa nid, regardless of whether those who love the Rasul ﷺ or Nasallallahu salam al-afif min al-shaqawa, from the people of righteousness who profess a hatred for the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they would not dispute upon the greatness and the magnificence of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. His blessed face sallallahu alaihi wasallam shone like the light of the full moon on a moonlit night sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And here not just on a moonlit night, yani Laylat al-Badr, and on the night of the full moon, when the full moon has reached completion and perfection and splendor the face of the Prophet ﷺ. And no doubt herein, it's a metaphor for the luminosity of the face of the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. As the Prophet sallallahu is Nur. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that he's Nur. He's light, Jalla Jalaluhu wa ta'ala. Likewise, the companions around the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam herein saying is going to make multiple references to the luminosity and the light of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And the metaphor here, the Badr, is a metaphor of completion, perfection, the full moon, the night of 14. Likewise, also, mashallah ta'ala, it's a metaphor, likewise, for the luminosity, the light of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which here you want in the most literal sense. Likewise, also a metaphor for beauty in the Arabic language. It brings in the science of Balagh or rhetoric, Layla Badrun, like Layla is the full moon. I mean, Layla is the full moon. Again, it's reference metaphorically, allegorically, to the beauty of Layla. Okay, with the full moon, the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, in the multiple senses. Like, mashallah, tabarak, the girl in the dark are going to sing Tala al-Badr. Prophet's face would shine, sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam, like the full moon, 14, the night of the full moon. And that is no one doubt of the prophetic and the Muhammadan numbers. And the 1414 it symbolizes perfection, and it symbolizes the name of the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And numerically in the Arabic language is the number 14. Hakadha the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. But the point is, nur, light, literal. And haqiqatan, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, is light literally. We mean literally the basar. We ain't speaking about the basira. The basar will see the nur of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. As mentioned previously, the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, atwal min al-marbu'. We already established he's taller than average in the marbu', the one of Rabi', the one of 4, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, aqsar min al-mushaddab. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, it's shorter than an extremely tall man. The mushaddab, somebody very tall, extremely tall, as we said. The mushaddab, the term used here also, likewise, we say in Anas, yani tawil al-ba'in. We said also in the Arabic language, rijal al-sudus, yani the men of 6 taller than them. Sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi, yani shorter than them, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, although will tower over them if they're ever placed in the context of the Nabi. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Like the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam will never appear taller, shorter, afwan, than anybody. Sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. He was taller than a man of average height, yet shorter than an extremely tall man. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And his blessed head was large. Sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. The base of it, azim al-hama. Azim al-hama. Head, ra's. Head. Hama, forehead. The forehead. And azim al-hama. Sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. And that they reference to the intellect of the Nabi. Remember the khalq, yadullu ala al-khuluq. The khalq always is indicative of the inward reality, okay? It's all there, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has trapped the inward reality with the outward, the outward manifestation. al-zahir unwan al-batin. The outward is the address, the signpost of the inward. And so everything about the Prophet, and that's why he liked the likes of Zaruq, Imam Ahmad Zaruq, rahimahullah ta'ala. He has an entire poem upon the Shama'il of the Prophet ﷺ, but Imam Zaruq, rahimahullah ta'ala, limits his poetry just to the physical form of the Prophet ﷺ. Because in the physics of the Rasul ﷺ, you can also access the metaphysics. And so the hammer and the forehead of the Prophet ﷺ, that's indicative of the frontal lobule of the Rasul, of the neocortex of the Rasul ﷺ, of the mind of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. And in the same way that the hammer, the forehead, is azim, and likewise also the actual intellect of the Rasul sallallahu is azim, likewise. And that, the importance of that is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveals that to the previous nations. That's the tradition of saying Wahhab ibn Munabbih, rahimahullah ta'ala, the former rabbi of Yemen, who embraces Islam in the age of the Tabi'een, radiallahu ta'ala, and anhu wa ardahu, when he says, Qara'tu, I read in 72 books of Banu Israel, as a rabbi, in 72 books of the children of Israel, that I read that the intellect of the Prophet ﷺ compared to the intellect of the entirety of Allah Ta'ala's creation. You show for that entirety, not just the sentient reality of human beings, not just the sentient reality of what? Of jinn of a higher sentient nature, of intelligent life form than the human being. But sure of the angels, who are completely sentient. Sure of angels, as Ibn Khaldun, rahimahullah ta'ala, in his Muqaddimah, he said the angels are 100% intellect. They just mind. Hakada saying Ibn Khaldun, rahimahullah ta'ala says. Sure. And then what about the creation that we know not of? What about the arsh of Allah ta'ala? Is it not a sentient reality? What about the qalam of Allah ta'ala? Is it not a sentient reality? ماذا أكتب? What about the arsh of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Is it not a sentient reality? Look at the sentient reality that Allah Ta'ala creates. Now let's compare it to the mind of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam in accordance to what Allah Ta'ala reveals. And Ibn Munabbih rahimahullah ta'ala, he said, it's like the grains of sands upon the face of the earth. That the collective intelligence of the creation of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam in comparison to the intelligence of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is like one grain of sand compared to all of the other grain of sands upon the earth. هذا كلام الله, that the revelation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to previous nations. عظيم الهامة. Like you see in the biography of Imam Malik ibn Anas rahimahullah ta'ala. عظيم الهامة. Imam Malik, forehead big, radiallahu anhu wa. He said that was a reference to the intelligence of the great Imam of Darul Hijrah, radiallahu ta'ala, and his blessed head, more so his forehead, was large, sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sahbihi wa sallama. وَالرَّجُلَ الشَّعَرِ, and his blessed hair was wavy. Okay, if you want that as a translation, otherwise it said rajul means well groomed. Okay, that the hair of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is always well groomed. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If the hair on the front of his blessed head parted easily, he would part it in the middle. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and if it did not, he would leave it as it was. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. As we know, just the narrative about religion, that we can speak about the narrative of the two cities or the narratives of the two people. But likewise, in terms of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we can speak about the narrative of the hair of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he carries his hair in a specific way inside of Mecca, and he carries his hair in a specific way, in contradiction inside of Medina to Munawwara sallallahu alaihi wasallam. As for inside of Mecca sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam will not part his hair. There's no center part. The hair of the Rasul, that ordinarily he's got shoulder length hair, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If he's in Mecca, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there's no center part inside of the hair of the Nabi, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Whereas when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam migrates to Medina to Munawwara, now the hair parts. Okay, so thereby he carries a center part inside of his hair, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And upon that, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam takes flight to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Jalla Jalaluhu wa ta'ala ta'zamatuhu. Okay, the hair of the Nabi. What you want here in this vision here, as Hind radiallahu ta'ala anhu warda, in if taraqat aqiqatuhu. And if taraqat here, what he wants, and from that radiallahu anhu warda is a point that not that the Rasul parts his hair, but here, for Lughat al-Arab, that the hair seemingly by itself parts. Okay? Seemingly by itself it parts. But we understand that in the Arabic language, there's a mirroring, quote unquote, in terms of language. It's one of the unique forms in the structure of the Arabic language that gives you the outward, but also indicates the inward. What is the outward? Is that the hair is parting itself. What is the inward? It's God who's parting the hair of the Messenger of God, sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, and that's Medina to Munawwara. Okay? And so the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and it doesn't, although the traditions that we will see, we'll read the later tradition, that here that the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Ahl al-Makkah, the Ahl al-Makkah would part their hair. And so the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, khalif al-mushrikeen, be different to the mushrikeen, Makkah al-Mukarramah. So the Rasul doesn't part his hair. The Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is not reactionary to Mecca. He's not influenced by the culture of his people for better or for worse. Remember, the Rasul is not influenced, the influences. And so it's very, very important not to understand that because Mecca part their hair, remember, the men of the age had long hair, shoulder length hair. And in Mecca al-Mukarramah, Quraysh, we're speaking about, would have center part inside of their hair. And so because the Rasul is in Mecca, okay, I'm not going to have a center part. I'm going to be different to them. And his statement, Khalif al-Mushrikeen, that it's not that. Okay, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And hakada Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala what demanded from the Rasul ibtida'an, that the hair will not be parted, regardless of his people. But then when the Rasul migrates to Medina to Munawwara, and then you can hear the statement of the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Khalif al-Yahud, be different to the Yahud. Or Saint Aisha anha warda, kana yuhibbu muwafaqat ahl al-kitab fima lam yu'mar bi khilafih, that the Rasul, like Mecca, would always love to concur with the people of the book, so long as Allah Ta'ala did not command them to contradict thereof, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. From a perspective, whatever. Don't believe that the Rasul now going to Medina to Munawwara parts his hair to contradict the Jews and now to agree with his people, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, because he ain't parting his hair. It's Allah Ta'ala who's parting it. For the Messenger of Allah, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, so you get a clearer picture of the hair of the Rasul, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and the importance of it, which is why there are so many chapters here inside the Shama'il that will make reference to the hair of the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. That the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, if the hair on the front of his blessed head parted easily, seemingly by itself, although in reality Allah was subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who's parted it, he would part it. What do you mean he would part it? He would finish off the part himself sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. And if he did not, then he would leave it as it was. And when would he leave it as it was? At their Mecca, because Allah Ta'ala not partner. And when would he thereby finish off? Medina, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala begins the parting of the head, the blessed head of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. When he would leave his blessed hair, it would fall past his earlobes, sallallahu alayhi wa sahbihi wa sallam, in a reference already made. That the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sahbihi wa sallam, it would not touch or cut his hair, illa fi nusuk, except as an act of worship at the Haram, at Marwa, and after completing the Hajj or completing the Umrah, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, which why the Imam has mentioned only 4 times because the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam ever touched his hair, again in accordance to the Hajj and the Umrahs of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. When he would leave his blessed hair, it would fall past his earlobes, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, idha wafaruhu. And his complexion was fair and luminous, okay? Azhar alone, hakada azhar alone. Here more so, this is a reference to the radiance of the complexion of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Because I'm also reference to his color, his complexion, or how radiant his skin is. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Azhar alone, sallallahu alaihi wa alihi wasallam. His blessed forehead, the jabeen, was wide. Sallallahu alaihi wa alihi wa sahbihi wa sallama. الواسع الجبين أزج يعني أزج الحواجب, and likewise also his blessed eyebrows were arched, again that considered a sign of beauty. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. سوابق بغير قرن, and thin, long and full, perfectly shaped without connecting. Okay, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But as Hind anhu warda says, although again we see the archness of the eyebrows of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, min ghairi qarn, that's important, min ghairi qarn, that they don't connect in the middle. Although the eye, that does not yet ta'ammal, that is not able to see the eyebrows of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, could conclude, albeit erroneously, that the actual eyebrows of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam actually do connect. And بينهما عرق يدره الغضب, and between them, there's a vein that anger would cause to pulsate. Right? The Prophet has a vein here that whenever the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam gets angry, then it alerts the companions that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is now angry, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's alerting the companions to the fact that God is angry. And as Sayyidina Aisha radiallahu anha wardaha, she says, ما كان يغضب لنفسه. But the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam never got angry for himself. Within takamat hurumatillah, but whenever the ordinance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala were transgressed against, whenever sin manifested in the environment of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then you would see the Rasul get angry. Then you would see 2 things. One, you would see, quote unquote, the face, ihmarra wajha, that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam's face would redden, sign of his anger. But likewise also you would see the vein there in the center of the Prophet between his eyes, of his blessed head, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, likewise as translated, begin to pulsate, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The anger, as Sayyidina Aisha radiallahu anha wardaha says, would not subside until the Prophet sallallahu was certain the person who sins has made tawbah. So it's only tawbah and somebody returning back to the path of Allah Ta'ala, okay, that the Prophet sallallahu the anger would subside, because the anger of God is also subsided. And that they're beautiful, mashallah ta'ala, for the companion, because now when the anger of the Rasul subsides, that's a sign that their tawbah has been accepted by Allah ta'ala. Sure, that's what they're clear, mashallah ta'ala, accepted the tawbah. Because now the anger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is also subsiding, for the sin in question. Jalla jalalu wa ta'ala ta'adhamatu. He says, radiallahu ta'ala anhu, wa ardahu aqna al-irneen, that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam's nose, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his blessed nose was prominent, long, with a thin tip and a slight curvature in the middle. And it was aquiline, okay? Again, that slight curvature, that's similar to the actual one, the eyes, the eyebrows joining, one could erroneously conclude. Likewise, one can also erroneously conclude that there's a slight curvature here. On the bridge of the Prophet sallallahu. No, it's erroneous, for one to conclude that, or the one could be forgiven. Why? Because you're not able to see the Prophet sallallahu as clarity requires. A light rose from it, okay? And that's why the one here who did not look closely at him would think that it was raised high and straight with the tip of the nose slightly prominent. Okay, here, lahu, how can I say in the hymns word? Lahu nurun ya'lu. Okay, lahu nurun ya'lu. Okay, that light, there is light above it. And so the first thing here, that there is light above it, that cannot be metaphor. Where's the metaphor in that? That there is clear literal reference of saying the hymn. He's speaking about either he's speaking on one of 2 things, the Imam would say, He's either speaking about the nose, which is seemingly the context here, or ya'luhu ya'lu rasulillah. Okay, there's either light above the nose here, so there's a light that skews, which is one of the reasons of saying you can't clearly see the eyebrows, okay, of the Rasul because of the nur. And also you can't clearly see the nose of the Prophet ﷺ because of the nur. It's like sometimes, the Persians in particular, when they try to depict, they want to depict some type of image of the Prophet ﷺ, how they just place light there, isn't it? That there's sound, from a perspective, sound. That can be perceived light there. Lahu nurun ya'lu. Also light here, like the halo effect above the Prophet ﷺ, both meaning sound in the interpretation of the words of Sayyidina Hind, radiyallahu ta'ala anhu warda, and about the Prophet ﷺ. And his blessed beard was full and dense, sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. The Prophet has a full beard, sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. The Imams, rahimahullah ta'ala, they said the only thinning in the beard of the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is here, there. The type of thinness at this point here, there only. Okay, which is one of the sort of distinct hairs, and the men have sort of several distinct facial hairs upon the face, like a facial hair there, and facial hair here on the chin, there, the arad there. They're all distinct hairs, and separate hairs, and we're speaking about as one often can observe as they're growing into manhood, and where the hair begins to sprout, quote unquote, upon the chin, or upon the face, and of a man, obviously in particular. Yeah. And so with the Rasul ﷺ, all of the hair of the Rasul ﷺ's beard is thick, with the exception of here, there. The length of the beard of the Prophet ﷺ, we have no tradition. Okay, but what is understood here is the qabda. The beard of the Rasul ﷺ doesn't go beyond the fist, the fist of the hand of the Messenger of Allah ﷺ. Although no tradition in that regard, that's taken from the act of Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Umar, who's the most extreme upon the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, of the companions, that when his beard would go beyond the qabda, beyond here, Abdullah ibn Umar would cut there, hold the beard and cut here, Abdullah ibn Umar, and to try to ensure that, quote unquote, relatively that his beard is in accordance with the beard of the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. And that's important because that means shi'ar al-Muslimin, shi'ar al-Rijal, beard important. Or often, it's like, quote unquote, somebody seeing a lion without its hair in it. And even when it goes, rah, man ain't taking it seriously, sure. Often. And so even when a man without a beard goes, rah, roars, you ain't taking him seriously. And the beard, mashallah, from the majesty, quote unquote, of rujuliyah, of manhood. And that beard there, min al-Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Raftum sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, except by the Nabi, overwhelmingly the fuqaha are going to consider it haram for a person to touch their beard. Overwhelmingly. All the schools, with the exception of the school of Imam Shafi'i. In the school of Imam Shafi'i, consider it to be makruh, for the beard to be touched, not haram. The fuqaha say it's haram, Raftum. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, how in life, it's very simple. لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ. But man now start having beard. Why? Because man have a beard, innit? Next man them. So because next man them have a beard, the man says, oh, it's cool to have a beard. When next man them decide not to have a beard, the man want to go ajrad, man want to shave their beards. And who's your uswa? Who's your qibla? Like the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. His beard was thick and dense, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, full and dense, and his cheeks were smooth. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Smooth, but also what it means that the Rasul here, Sahl al-Khaddain, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, the Prophet never had high and prominent cheekbones. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. It doesn't have that. That they often the Imams, rahimahullah ta'ala, when we look at the attributes of beauty, that can be considered an attribute of beauty in a woman, but it's not considered an attribute of beauty inside of a man. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Like overwhelmingly the features that we discuss here in the face of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, the type of features that women desire, because it's an issue of beauty, type of features. But there are going to be certain elements in the face of the Prophet ﷺ that, quote unquote, contradict, you're right, obviously, and what a woman would desire. So high, prominent cheekbones, that's something a woman on the side of femininity would consider to be of the epitomes of beauty, but not in the Prophet ﷺ as Sahl. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam doesn't have high and prominent cheek, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, a cheekbone. His mouth was wide, ضليع الفم. Once again here, in phrenology, how the khalq, the form, indicates the khuluq. In phrenology, that's an indication to the fasaha of the Prophet. He has a wide mouth. When the Rasul smiles, you can see all of his teeth. Mouth wide, but it's articulation, eloquence. It indicates inwardly for the Prophet. And as discussed, afsah man antaqa bil-dad. Hakada Imam Shama'il discussed. He's the most articulate, afsah man antaqa bil-dad, that ever uttered the supreme language of man, the metalese of man, the original language of man, the language of Jannah, lughat al-Arab, the most afsah, the most eloquent ever to utter it. And the Arabic language demands a certain quote-unquote type of physiology of the mouth. And the Prophet's physiology of his mouth, perfect in that regard, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. His language used to, subhanAllah, used to bewilder the fusaha of the Arabs. I mean, the fusaha, those great laureates of the Arabs who were around the Rasul, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, they used to be bewildered at the language of the Prophet, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and his perfection in articulation. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, are the most important features of the Rasul, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, that distinguish and separate the Rasul from the rest of the prophets and the rest of humanity. And the language is indicative of mind, and mind is indicative of soul, and soul is indicative of sir, of the secret of the human being. We captured inside of this reality that's called what? The hayawan al-natiq, the speaking, the articulate animal, and the supreme animal that ever, mashallah ta'ala, with adab, articulated Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. And his blessed front teeth, then it was a slight space there. And of the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, there'd be a gap there between in the front teeth of the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. That's why I say in the Hindu will later say, يخرج منه كالنور. There's a gap of the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. You see light, say the Hinds, where light, يخرج, and it coming from his mouth. Sometimes they say in colloquial language, somebody's spitting light. Light. Even of our teachers said, the traditional saying, يخرج منه مثال كالنور. It's not light that's coming up, but it's a like light. You say, what do you mean it's like light? Yani more so, and here out of that, light is like it. And فوق النور. That which comes out of the Rasul sallallahu is higher than what we understand to be light. Of our teachers explained in there, radiallahu ta'ala, anhu warda. And a thin line of hair ran from his blessed chest to his navel. That's called the masruba, the masruba. Even the lubba here, from there, you see this thin line going all the way down, right through the chest of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, all the way to the place where his navel would have been sallallahu alaihi wasallam. His blessed neck was like that of an ivory statue, as resplendent in silver. The jeed of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the jeed, although unuq, but the way the unuq is neck, the jeed is here. That's your jeed here, okay? Which is one of the places of beauty inside the human being. That's why people wear necklaces there to adorn it even further upon the jeed there. And so that jeed of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wa sallam, mashallah ta'ala, and beautiful, and like an ivory statue, as resplendent as silver, fidda, and fidda, again, metal in the Arabic language for beauty, resplendent, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And his physique was evenly proportioned, as we said in mu'tadil al-khalq. The Rasul sallallahu alaihi wa alihi wa sallam, that's the golden mean. All of those Da Vinci and all those sorts, the Fibonacci numbers, that Shuf Cape, the Prophet is the perfection of divine creation. Sallallahu alaihi wa sallam, perfectly proportioned. Not there like Da Vinci and Angelo and all them there, and they're all drawing that man there. That's to try to show the perfection of proportion in terms of beauty. You know, seeing it there? And my man like that, show okay. And that the Nabi says that the Sahaba saw it. Subhanallah, radiallahu anhum, wardahum. Often we don't understand why the Sahaba were the Sahaba, anhum wardahum. Like when you see something beautiful, tell me the effect that it has upon you. You wear it when you gaze upon beauty. And what are you gazing upon even? Somebody gazes upon Layla and they're like, oh, Layla fine or whatever, they show. Somebody gazes upon the moon and they say, MashaAllah ta'ala, the moon there. But look at the effect that it has. You ain't even gazed upon Rasulullah, but they did. You could see like what effect did that have upon the realities of the companions themselves, gazing upon the Prophet ﷺ in whatever regard. They can gaze upon the Prophet ﷺ, gazing up his hand, gazing upon his feet, gazing upon his walk, gazing upon his face, gazing upon his hair. MashaAllah ta'ala, you've got that far. But look at the effect that it had upon the companions of the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Just like lam ara qablahu wa la ba'du mithlahu. As you say in the Barra, saying Ali and others, that we've not seen before him or after him anybody like him. Lam ara qablahum wa la ba'dahum mithlahum. You've not seen before them or after them the likes of them, the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but it's due to the fact that they gazed upon the perfection of divine creation. Sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. And his physique was evenly proportioned, and he was well built and firm. Sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Had a badin, I can say in badin mutamasik. And the word badin in the Arabic language, like badin is somebody big, badin. Like in the Arabic language, a camel, budna. Ba dal noon, budna, somebody big, big, badin. But he saying a Hindu and water, he says badin. When you say badin, you think somebody's big, so big that you could even be forgiven, believing that they're fat, their bigness, their largesse is that they're fat. But that's why saying the Hind now says mutamasik. What's mutamasik meaning? It's all together, Haven't got the point? Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Remember the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to the day he took flight to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, carried a six-pack. Six-pack. The tradition, literally the companions, radiallahu anhum wardahum. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he has described that he's well built, firm, sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sahbihi wasallam, and his blessed chest and stomach, we're even with each other. Like there's no excess, quote unquote, fat flesh upon the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sahbihi wasallam. And that's how Allah Ta'ala created him, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And you never heard that the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam went to the gym, and the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam never went to the gym, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Because Allah Ta'ala created the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam perfect, and there's not even a sign of deterioration in the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Rasul takes flight 63 years of age. There's no deterioration in the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Hakadahu sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You gaze, you have all these sort of these fairy tales, folkloric, Peter Pan, the boy that never grew up, never got old. Okay, we need to gaze upon at 63 years of age, sallallahu alaihi wa alihi wa sahbihi wasallam, and you to gaze upon the Rasul at 15 years of age, 14 years of age. At Fijar, it's essentially looking at the same reality. That's what you'll find in the hair of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Shibta, saying Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. Saying Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, Shibta. And I see some grey there. See, Abu Bakr had taken aback by it, that he just sees grey. What grey? The Prophet sallallahu saying Anas is going to tell us 17, 18 hairs, of the Prophet sallallahu wasallam. And what grey there of the Prophet sallallahu wasallam? Like the slightest grain of Abu Bakr, shibta. Why? Because grayness can be seen as a sign of deterioration, isn't it? A sign of somebody getting old. But not with the Rasul. That's what the Rasul sallallahu wasallam says. Shayyabatni hud wa akhawatuha. It ain't got nothing to do with the issue of deterioration here. This is Quran. You're gazing at the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala inside of the very head of the Prophet sallallahu wasallam, that what espouses light, mashallah ta'ala, in terms of the grayness of the Prophet sallallahu wasallam. But hakadha the Rasul sallallahu wasallam, the physique of the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wasallam. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And his blessed chest and stomach were even with each other until the day he passed away. I could have seen him once there. He says, his blessed chest and shoulders were broad, as we've read, and his blessed joints were large. But again, here beautifully proportionally, because everything's proportional in the Prophet ﷺ. His blessed limbs that were enclosed, shone brightly. Okay? The blessed clothes that were unclothed, the blessed limbs that were unclothed shone brightly. So here saying the Hind uses the word ajrad, and ajrad here, the base of ajrad, as we alluded to before, ajrad here, although ajrad can be unclothed, but ajrad, so the Rasul has no bodily hair. That's what's most understood by ajrad. There is no bodily hair upon the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam except Okay, we looked at some of the exceptions that are prominent, and then saying the Hindu make mention of some of the exceptions that are not so prominent. You've got to sort of really look carefully to see any quote unquote additional hair upon the blessed body of the Prophet ﷺ. That's what Anwar. And Anwar the Sham, Anwar, most illumined. And so now when you're looking at the actual blessed torso form of the Prophet ﷺ, you are seeing Nur. You find Anwar, the highest degree of light. هكذا على تفضيل اسمه تفضيل in the Arabic language. The highest degree of light would shine bright from the blessed form of the Prophet ﷺ, saying literally, besides the thin line of hair. So that's the context. Is ajrad, except. That's what's insane. He has no bodily hair that is prominent except the thin line of hair that ran from his blessed upper chest to his navel, sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Neither his breast nor his stomach had hair. Okay. His blessed arms, shoulders, and upper chest, however, had hair, not prominent, slight, so that you're not going to see it upon awwal another, upon first look. But if you're going to look, then as somebody can do when they look carefully at their skin, they can now begin to discern, quote, more subtle hair. Hakada with the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. His blessed arms, sallallahu shoulders, and upper chest, however, that hair. He had long forearms, sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, and wide palms. The forearms of the Rasul sallallahu were long and obviously powerful. The great Imam, that he mentioned about the great Imam al-Asma'i, rahimahullah ta'ala, Asma'i, of the early people. He says when he gazed upon Imam, he'd never seen anybody with bigger forearms there than Imam Hassan al-Basri, rahimahullah ta'ala. So the forearms, like a shibr. He said the forearms of Hassan al-Basri were a shibr in width, in width. The power of the forearms of the great Imam of Medina and Basra, say Hassan al-Basri, rahimahullah ta'ala. Take Hassan al-Basri to the Martini and see what occurs, radiallahu anhu warda. But the forearms of the Prophet sallallahu, and he had long forearms and wide palms. Not wide palms, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, in metaphor or literally. They were literally wide, but metaphor. The wideness of palms here, as we said, is for generosity of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. When you say somebody has wide palms, or when you say somebody has long hands, and that in the Arabic language can be used for an issue of metaphor, metaphor, that they're generous. That's why, like when the Prophet ﷺ, when he dresses his wives, ﷺ, that the first one of you to meet me, barzakh, to pass away, will be the one who has the longest arm, the longest hands. The one who has the longest hands will be the first one to meet me. And so the Prophet says, literally, does it mean metaphor? Sure, they're going to go for it both ways. And so now when they measured, they began to measure the wives of the Prophet ﷺ, they began to measure their arms because the desire of Ma'iyah, of to be with the Prophet ﷺ. He found that the one with the longest arms was sent to Salama, Hind, bint Abi Umayyah. She had the longest arms, radiallahu anha wa ardaha. But as they say, time is a great interpreter of events, isn't it? And we will see who passed away first. And so the one who passed away first was Zainab bin Jahash, radiallahu anha wa ardaha. So when Zainab bin Jahash passes away, you understand, look, sure, they're not saying, oh, look, the Rasul sallallahu was wrong. You see that? Now they must reinterpret their understanding of it, isn't it? That it wasn't literal, but it was metaphor. And so now with Zainab bin Jahash, well known that she was the most generous, the most munificent, mashallah, of the wives of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So you understand that there was metaphor, sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam, his blessed limbs, and he shone right besides the thin line of hair, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, his blessed arms, his long forearms, wide palms, fully fleshed, steady hands and feet, as we mentioned. His blessed fingers and toes were long, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and well proportioned, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and he had a slight arch, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, the soles of his blessed feet, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and the long fingers, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And he said the sabab of the Rasul was the longest finger, the sabab of this finger. Okay. But that day was the longest, and we all fall short. You see some people close in and some people like that there. But the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam like that there. Okay, subhanallah. The physiology of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Because this finger for God, isn't it? The sababa, to find fault, finds fault in creation due to its deficiency in front of the Creator. The sababa. And that day the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam forgot. That's how you see that the Prophet ﷺ, saying to him, likewise that the Prophet ﷺ, when the Prophet would point, he uses his entire hand. He points at something, he uses his entire hand. I point at creation. When he points at creation, the entire hand. When he points at the Creator, that finger is there for the divine. So Ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyya is that. He said that's one of the ways the Rasul makes dua. The Sunnah just that finger outstretched is dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyya brings in the Zayd al-Ma'ad radiyallahu ta'ala anhu wardahu. Besides the thin line of it, his blessed arm. He says radiyallahu ta'ala anhu wardahu, and he's saying to him that his blessed feet were smooth, such that water would run right off them. It poured upon it. He said, there's the skin of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It was more smoother than silk. And when he walks, he would lift his blessed feet with vigor, as mentioned, and he would lean forward slightly, and he would tread lightly, hawnan, humble. And the Prophet humble. That's why, Imam Tirmidhi, bab tawadu'ah, the chapter of the humility of the Nabi, sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Everything about the Rasul says I'm humble. Because hakada, ulu lillah. That's for God, subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's for God to rise, for God to be prominent. Tahqiq al-ubudiyya, the realization of slavehood in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is to go low, is to be humble. As the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the Bukhari, he says, "Man tawada'a lillah rafa'ahu Allah." The one who falls humble for the sake of God, rafa'ahu Allah. Allah ta'ala raises. And Allah ta'ala says, وَرَفَعْنَا لَكَ ذِكْرَكَ. And we've raised your remembrance. So now look at the Rasul. كَانَ يَمْشِي هَوْنًا. Saying him said, يَمْشِي هَوْنًا. The Prophet in front of creation, hatta. So as somebody enters in the presence of the Rasul with his companions, he'll ask which one of you is Muhammad. They don't even know who he is. A degree of veils over their eyes. But that's also part of the humility of the Prophet. And so you see who is Abu Ala al-Mu'arri, one of his poems, صاحي هذه القبور تملأ الرحبة فأين القبور من عهد عادي. Abu Ala al-Mu'arri said in one of his poems, he says, my companion, هذه القبور تملأ الرحبة. You gaze upon what graveyard, they're all full. فأين القبور من عهد عادي. And so thereby, where are the graves from the people of Ad? And what does he mean by that? Now walk upon the earth. You want to hear lightly, in humility when you walk upon the earth. Because you're walking upon the graveyards of men, the graveyards of women. The entire earth is a graveyard. The way you would behave inside of a graveyard, if you're dhu fatin, dhu yaqidh, you're awake, you're intelligent, is the way you should always walk upon the face of the earth. And hakada the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he walking, and hakada you couldn't even hear him approaching sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You couldn't, hakada how light and slight at that speed with that vigor. Hakada is humility. And hakada ibad al-Rahman, as Allah says in Surah Al-Furqan, ibad al-Rahman alladhina yamshuna ala al-ardi hawna. The slaves of the Rahman, they're the ones who walk upon earth hawn, lightly, in all humility. Hakada, in imitation of whom? And the supreme abd of the Rahman, sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. He had a naturally long stride. Wasi' al-khat. The Prophet wasi'. And the Prophet doesn't take steps, but he strides, sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. And when walking, it was as if he was descending a height. When he would turn to look at someone or something, he would turn with his whole body, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And he would lower his gaze. Hakada sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Khafid al-taraf. The gaze of the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam always lowered, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. The Rasul never looks at somebody in the eyes. In the gait, the Rasul looking at somebody in the eyes. Sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Once again, part of his humility, sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. The eyes there only for God, that they're one. And then thereby those eyes that are only for God, Jalla Jalaluhu wa ta'ala ta'azamatuh, then what happens when those eyes do fall upon you, isn't it? And that day from Ahlul Irth, nadhri fil Jannah, those people of Irth, the specific class of the awliya, the Ummah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If they gaze upon you, you're going to paradise. And sure, if you gaze upon you, you're going to paradise. That's why, like the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, nadhra, a single glance, ila al-alim, ala scholar, ka'ibadat al-sana. It's like the worship of one entire year. Indi, with me. Like not abstractly, but with me, yani, with the Rasul. The worship one entire year with me. It's got the Muhammadan stamp on it. One gaze at a scholar. Your gaze at the scholar. What about the scholar's gaze at you? What then that, yani? When the scholar looks at you. Then what then when it's not just a scholar, it's a wali. The one then is not just a scholar or a wali, but it's a wali who has the inheritance from the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Shuf kayf. هكذا the companions of the Prophet عليه وصحبه وسلم الله أعلم يعني من رأى النبي هكذا من لقي النبي and whoever saw the Rasul, whoever met the Rasul, definition of the companion. What about من رآه النبي? What about defining as the one who the Prophet saw? That more important. What about من لقيه النبي? What about the one who the Prophet met? That's more precise, isn't it? You sure? Not just the one who saw the Nabi or met the Nabi, because his sight far more important than their sight. Yani. The gaze of the Prophet nadri fil Jannah, yani. One of those eyes of the Rasul and a gaze upon, and that one going to paradise, isn't it? That's why Allah bi nadra. You ask Allah Ta'ala for the nadra. So you can show what is the nadra of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And what must it have been like those companions? Like I'm using a metaphor when you lock eyes with the Nabi. Innit? Just that moment, clink, when you lock eyes with the Nabi. I kind of how the soul must have flew all the way to Jannah and got to pass all the way to paradise for the doors of al-A'la, knocking upon the doors of Wasila. Yani. Shuf kayf, yani. Sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. And he would lower his gaze, and for good reasons, alayhi wa sallam. But if he lifted them and gazed upon you, you are sealed. You are good with God. Jalla Jalaluhu wa ta'ala azamatu. And he would look at the ground more than he would look at the sky. He said the only time he looks at the sky in anticipation of the descent of the archangel of Gabriel, anticipating revelation. As Allah as Allah says in Baqarah, like we see your face, your wedge, you close your eyes, gazing at the heavens, isn't it? You should what for? Direction to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through prayer. Like why do we pray towards the Kaaba? Because the Rasul wants us to pray towards the Kaaba. Radi. As Allah Ta'ala, like, okay, we'll give you a qibla. We'll designate a direction of prayer for you, Ya Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's important. That you are pleased with. Are you sure? Isn't it? It's sure that you are happy with. You want that? We're going to give you that. Aisha said, what is that we see? Your Lord always moves swiftly, hastens to confirm your desire. Whatever you desire, it's yours. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said. That's why, mashallah ta'ala, people cast into Jannah, that from the desire of the Nabi. Radiyallahu anhum. Radiya Rasulullah anhum. And the Rasul pleased with them. That's why Allah radiya anhum. Jalla Jalaluhu wa ta'ala azamatu. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he would lower his gaze, he would look at the ground more than he would look into the sky sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Most of his looking was from the corner of his blessed eye. We mentioned that yesterday. Jullu nadri al-mulahadha. We explained it yesterday, inshallah ta'ala, should suffice there. He sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he would have his companions walk in front of him. Also discussed, yasuq ashaba, yani sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, always walk from behind, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and leave my back for the angels. But more important for us, I got your back. Yani. So sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, I have your back, he told the companions. MashaAllah ta'ala. That's why you say Ali rahimahullah ta'ala, and khalas, yani in the thick of war, we would find shelter behind the Rasul. That's the only time you find the Rasul in the front, isn't it? The thick of war, yani. Now the Rasul in the front, the Sahaba behind the Nabi sallallahu. Otherwise, the Rasul sallallahu always walking from behind. And you look at that, what type of bravery is that? What type of courage is that, yani? You show off them, enemies come from behind. But here the Rasul sallallahu making sure his companions are good. And he would initiate greetings of peace with salam wherever he met. Oh well, you bet it. And there's nobody gonna beat the Rasul to the draw, yani. And the salam from what? From the tools of jihad. That's why you find the ahkam of salam inside of the chapter of jihad, yani, inside of the law, inside of fiqh, yani. But nobody beats the Rasul to the draw, yani. He's the first one to say assalamu alaikum, isn't it? Sure. And sometimes nastahi, isn't it? The Rasul said assalamu alaikum. Who are you to say wa alaikum assalam, innit? Like as if your dua with Allah Ta'ala, you're going to give salam on the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. What's important from the Nabi, assalamu alaikum, isn't it? Imagine just hearing that at the Ansar there, and the Rasul, assalamu alaikum, and I could wa alaikum assalam. And the Rasul waits, no one opens the door, assalamu alaikum. So, and they're in the house, yani. How God that is saying, yani, what they don't figure, they think that the Rasul can't hear them. The Rasul sallallahu wa sallam, asma' ma la tasma'un, ara ma la taron. I hear that which you do not hear. I see that which you do not see. The Rasul sallallahu wa sallam says in the Musnad there, sallallahu wa sallam, the Rasul hear, yani. Sure, it's like in Fat Mecca when Safwan ibn Umayyah, the shaitan of Quraysh there, before his Islam, when he says what? When he says he says to Abu Sufyan, when Sayyidina Bilal is making the adhan on the Kaaba, he's saying to, what are you saying about that? To Abu Sufyan. Abu Sufyan says, I ain't saying nothing. Why is Abu Sufyan saying I ain't saying nothing? Because he knows that the Rasul can hear him no matter where he is at. That's why he said I ain't saying nothing, really. If I say something, the Rasul will hear what I'm saying. So you Safwan thinking, oh, don't worry, he's way over there, he can't hear you. No, the Rasul will hear you at a distance. It's like there at Hudaybiyah, isn't it? Hudaybiyah, when al-Munafiqun, he's speaking about the Rasul sallallahu wa sallam, a huge distance. Then, no, sooner as you do that, somebody calls him, oh, the Rasul wants you. So you go all the way to the Prophet sallallahu wa sallam. So the Prophet sallallahu said, what did you just say? What did you just repeat it? Now repeat it again. He's like, isn't the Prophet sallallahu assalamu alaikum. Now they say wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So now the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, what prevented you? And from saying it aloud, yeah, Rasulullah, we just wanted your salams upon the house, isn't it? We wanted to hear your salamu alaikum, assalamu alaikum, assalamu alaikum. Shuf. Coming from the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. هكذا الحديث of Sayyidina Hind and رضي الله تعالى عنه وارضاه and موفقين إن شاء الله تعالى. Any questions inshallah ta'ala? Any questions? Do you have any questions? Sister Sophia, she becomes a wife of the Prophet ﷺ. At this point in time, we mentioned the narration, she's not a wife. And Sister Sophia anha wa from Banu Israel, Haruniya, Aaronite, anha wa but she's later going to marry the Prophet ﷺ. As we said, it will come to pass. Now you desire the king of Yathrib, well, that will come to pass. So that she not only desire, but she will marry the king of Yathrib. Sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Sophia bint Huyay, radiyallahu ta'ala anha wa And the most important question is, how many do you have? What? Look, his knees are his head's touching the ground now. How many wives do you have? So that's the most important question in life. As for the Rasul, the Rasul had a lot of wives. One has made a mistake if they put a number on the amount of wives that the Prophet had with certainty. Sure. Yeah. Now, but the most important question is not how many wives did the Prophet have, it's how many do you have? How old are you? You look like I'm 15. Yani. As if what do you expect you are 15 years of age? Get married. That's what we expect. What do you mean? What do you mean? You know, those great people around the Prophet Amr ibn al-As, Imam, he got married at 9. He was 9. The one who opened up Egypt, opened up Cairo, the great Imam, Amr ibn al-As, in there. 9. I mean, he was 6 years younger than you are now. Okay? Sort yourself out. Get a life. So if any questions, inshallah ta'ala? Do you have any questions? Go on. Go on. No, that it's best being explained according to your school of jurisprudence, which the Fiqh would assume is the Hanafi school. So it's better they understand like the beard in according to the Hanafi school in and of itself. But the Shafi'is can have difference of opinions, like the Malikis. Some of the Shafi'i fuqaha, the beard is only what's upon the chin there. The lihya is only upon the liha, and the liha, they mean the dhaq and the chin. That's how you see many of the fuqaha huge, yani, imams of law, yani, of Hadramaut, that they just have what we call the goatee, and that they fiqh, and that's the position that they will embrace. That beard is what the actual beard is. You'll have others in the school of Imam Malik, rahimahullah ta'ala. The liha is the jawbone. So it's the actual hair that grows upon the jawbone. So that's quote unquote where the wujub or where the sunnah lies upon the old jawbone and none of the rest. How you can have different opinions, and those opinions, mashallah ta'ala. But ultimately, at some point, especially in our day and age, you want to sort of, in a sense, move beyond, quote unquote, the actual positions of the fuqaha, okay, to what is known of the Nabi. So we're trying to head towards the Nabi, so with deference and obviously respect to the fuqaha and the positions that they, quote unquote, have, we want to know, okay, tell us what the Prophet did. What was the beard that the Prophet had? I just want that beard. You get the point? And I'm not finding fault or attributing deficiency to anything other than that. But I'm just trying to sort of live my life in accordance with the example that he'd set, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. I remember also his example is not to look down or find fault any other place. See, it's not that. I just want to follow the Nabi, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Everyone's veiled from the true beauty of the Prophet ﷺ. As you said, Imam Qurtubi best explains it, that were it to be unveiled, you would die upon sight. Yeah. You get the point? The human being, quote unquote, limited. Yeah. There's only a degree of beauty we're able to withstand. There's only a degree of it. Yeah. MashaAllah is perfect, because the wives of the Prophet were, and they were perfect. Yeah. There's only a degree of beauty of the Rasul ﷺ they can embrace. Yeah. Okay, as you see of the companions of the Prophet ﷺ, how the wives push him, that one there in front of you there. Yeah, of the companions. Look, of the companions, he had 4 wives, and those 4 wives would compete to be more beautiful than their husband, and the husband will always appear more beautiful. Why was he more beautiful? Because the Nabi ﷺ touched him. Again, the tradition. Why was he more fragrant? Because the Rasul touched him. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. You understand? And so, wives of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, as beautiful and as perfect as they were, they can only embrace a degree of beauty of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam beyond fa'iq sallallahu alayhi wa sallam in his jamal. Any questions, inshallah ta'ala? Do you have any questions? Any questions? جزاكم الله خيرا وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد.